Sometime in the dying light of November, Ava Rodriguez stood before the cabin that time had tried to erase. The trees leaned in close, their bare branches creaking against the gray sky as if whispering warnings too old for words. The house stood crooked and quiet, its windows cracked like old memories, its porch sinking under decades of neglect. For anyone else, it would have looked like a ruin. For Ava, it was a chance, and maybe her last one. 3 weeks of living in her car had stripped her pride raw, but not her determination. She had found the job pinned on a bulletin board. Cleaning help needed. Cash payment, remote cabin. The words had shimmered like salvation under flickering fluorescent light. Now standing beside her 7-year-old daughter Lily, with snow threatening from the clouds, Ava whispered a promise to herself. This place would be their beginning. She didn't know that beneath those floorboards, hidden in darkness for 70 years, slept a secret so powerful it would change everything. Behind her, Rachel Chen, the woman who had hired her, stared at the cabin with haunted reverence, her breath trembling in the cold. Neither of them spoke, but both felt it. This house was waiting. The morning before they arrived, Ava had watched Lily's breath fog against the car window as she slept curled beneath a blanket that smelled faintly of gasoline. The world outside didn't care that they were invisible. Just another mother and child surviving in the cracks of America's promise. She had been fired from the diner, the factory shut down, and every door she knocked on had been closed by paperwork and polite refusals. Hope had become a kind of superstition, something you whispered about but never looked at directly. Yet when she saw Rachel's posting at the community center, it was different, handwritten, personal, human. When Rachel appeared, tall, early 30s, carrying the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting invisible battles, Ava felt something shift. The woman spoke gently about her grandmother's passing, about a cabin abandoned for decades, about needing help she couldn't afford to hire professionally. The pay was small, but she offered shelter, 4 walls and a roof, even if cold and creaking. That night, as Lily slurped hot soup from a diner cup, Ava stared at her child's sleepy smile and thought, I will make this work. She had no idea the universe was already conspiring to rewrite her story beneath that cabin's wooden skin. They reached the cabin at noon the next day. The drive through the woods felt endless, the road narrowing into a tunnel of trees until it seemed the world itself had folded inward. The cabin appeared suddenly, a shadow rising out of frost and memory. When Rachel forced open the swollen door, the smell of old air, damp and earthy, rushed out like something alive. Inside, dust hung in beams of pale light, each mote drifting as if reluctant to settle. The fireplace was blackened with soot, the furniture skeletal under white sheets of decay. To Ava, it looked less like a home and more like the memory of one. Still, she felt something stirring beneath the silence, not menace but history. Lily darted between rooms, her laughter echoing softly against the walls. Mama, she whispered, it feels like the house is dreaming. Ava smiled weakly and set to work. The sink coughed brown water before running clear. The floorboards groaned like bones waking from sleep. When night came, mother and daughter huddled by the wood stove, the fire painting their faces gold. Snow fell outside, silent and endless, and in the shadows of the upstairs bedroom, the floor shifted, ever so slightly, as if the cabin itself had turned over in its sleep. It was Lily who found it. On the 4th day, the little girl was hopping from board to board, her laughter ringing through the dusty air when she stopped. Mama, the floor sounds funny, she said, kneeling beside the bed frame. Ava crouched beside her, pressing her palm to the floor, hollow, different. With a butter knife and trembling hands, she pried loose the wood. The board lifted easily, too easily, revealing a hidden compartment lined with brittle newspaper and the scent of age. Inside lay a rusted metal box no bigger than a bread loaf, sealed with a latch that gave way with a quiet click. What lay inside stole her breath. Bundles of letters tied with faded string, black and white photographs, and documents stamped with old seals. Bonds, deeds, papers that whispered of money and memory. Ava knew instantly this was not hers to open. This was something sacred. She called Rachel, who arrived pale and shaking, her breath visible in the cold air. Together, under the dying light of afternoon, they unfolded a legacy. The letter spoke of a woman named Catherine, Rachel's great-grandmother, who during the Great Depression had hidden her fortune across the land. Gold coins, war bonds, property deeds, a map written in code, one only her descendants could read. Catherine hadn't been protecting wealth. She'd been protecting her family's future. Rachel read the words aloud, her voice trembling. If you are reading this, it means my plan survived time. Catherine's handwriting danced across the yellowed paper, her thoughts preserved like pressed flowers. She had buried gold beneath the oak tree, sealed bonds beneath the stone well, hidden jewelry under the dry creek bed, not out of greed but desperation. The banks had failed, neighbors had starved, and trust had become a luxury the poor could no longer afford. Rachel's grandmother, Eleanor, must have known, but age and dementia had buried her memory before she could tell anyone. The family had lived in quiet struggle, never realizing that their salvation slept beneath their own feet. Together, Rachel and Ava followed the map, unearthing the past piece by piece. Coins glittered beneath tree roots, bonds surfaced in jars sealed with wax. Each discovery felt like more than luck. It felt like forgiveness. When the last trunk emerged from the earth, filled with jewels that glowed in the dusk like captured stars, Rachel fell to her knees, whispering, "She saved us." And beside her, Ava thought of Catherine, a woman who had fought despair the same way she herself did, with love disguised as survival. When the excavation ended, Rachel and her uncle sat on the porch surrounded by boxes of their ancestors' dreams. The land alone was worth millions. The bonds had matured beyond imagination. Yet Rachel's gaze wasn't on the money. It was on Ava. "You could have taken it," she said softly. "No one would have known." Ava shook her head. "But my daughter would have known." That answer changed everything. Weeks later, Rachel returned with an offer that left Ava speechless. The cabin and 5 acres of land would be hers. Not rented, not borrowed. Given. "You found the treasure," Rachel told her, "and became part of it." The cabin was restored, windows replaced, walls scrubbed of time. For the first time in years, Ava had a home. Lily had a bed, a school, and mornings filled with sunlight instead of exhaust fumes. Rachel and her husband visited often, their laughter filling the space where ghosts once lingered. Sometimes at night, when Ava tucked Lily into bed, she would touch the wall and whisper a thank you to the women who came before, Catherine, Eleanor, Rachel, a line of strength she had unknowingly joined. The cabin had kept its promise. It had protected love until love returned. Months passed. Snow melted into rivers of light, and spring painted the forest green again. The cabin, once forgotten, now pulsed with life. Rachel started a foundation in her grandmother's name to fund scholarships for women escaping poverty. Ava was her first board member. Lily thrived in school, her laughter now a song the woods seemed to know by heart. And Ava, she became something new. She worked at a local nursing home, earning her certification and rediscovering her worth. The woman who had once begged for work was now helping others find peace in their final days. On the 1-year anniversary of the discovery, the families gathered again. The porch was lit with lanterns, the air alive with music and memory. David, Rachel's uncle, raised a toast. "To the women who protected us, and to the one who reminded us what integrity looks like." Ava lowered her head, tears catching the firelight. Integrity. That word felt heavier than gold, because the truth was simple. She hadn't saved the Chen family alone. The cabin had saved them all, binding generations through one quiet act of honesty that would ripple long after they were gone. Years later, when the local paper wrote about the discovery, they called it the hidden fortune of the Chen cabin. But those who visited knew better. The real treasure wasn't buried beneath the floorboards. It was standing on the porch every morning watching the forest wake. Ava and Lily lived there still, their laughter mixing with birdsong, their lives a quiet testament to the power of decency. Rachel often said that Ava hadn't just cleaned her grandmother's cabin, she had dusted off her family's soul. And when the wind blew through the pines at night, it carried whispers of Catherine's journal. Love is the only treasure worth protecting. As stars glittered above the darkened clearing, Ava would sit on the porch and listen. To the forest, to her daughter's laughter, to the heartbeat of a home reborn. Because in the end, the cabin's secret wasn't gold or deeds or jewels. It was proof that kindness survives time, that honesty still matters, that even in a world hardened by hunger and fear, doing the right thing could still change everything. And if this story touched you tonight, if you believe that hope can be rebuilt from dust, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who still believes in good people, and subscribe for more stories that remind us. Sometimes the richest treasures are the ones we never meant to find.